Hi, my name is Stacy Bishop, and this is my country case study final presentation about education in Turkey. By studying other places, we can hope to learn and grow from their practices. The Republic of Turkey is a country which has a growing education system. It is rapidly progressing to join other countries on the world stage. Here's what we're going to talk about. I'll give you a brief history on the education in Turkey, including some interesting government initiatives, the rise of compulsory education, and shocker, a scandal. The Republic of Turkey and the United States, I'll give you a comparison of some of the numbers. The school at which I interviewed two educators, a little bit about the educators in our interview, and then to wrap it up, what we can learn from all this. So a brief history of education in Turkey. Compulsory education, meaning students have to go, was only raised through high school a few years ago. Before that, it was 8th grade. And so a lot of the country still remains stopping at 8th grade out of tradition or lack of opportunity. There was a campaign promise. It's called Faith, even though it's spelled wrong. A politician said, I want to put an internet-enabled device in the hand of every student in the Republic of Turkey. It's a pretty bold claim. But here's the thing, started to follow through with it, and because of that, a lot of Turkey now is more internet enabled, students have access to devices, and teachers have access to things like smart boards in the classroom. However, with cool stuff often comes cheating, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Like many other countries, there's still a separation of private schools and public schools, with wealthier people being able to afford a nicer education. So compulsory service. As a Swedish scholar noted, in August 2013, over 1,112,000 students took the placement test for 363,000 slots in regular academic high schools. They take this test when they're 9. And that will determine what they're doing for the rest of their life. High scores go to high schools. If you score lower, you may be funneled into a vocational school or a religious school or what they call multi-purpose high schools in rural areas. So later students will retake this exam to see if they can get a government job, and that job lasts for life. So at the age of 9, it is decided whether or not you're going to get an education that will lead you to a university track or a government job. And if you are lucky enough to pass that, get into a good high school, and get a government job, your job lasts for life. So that's a lot of pressure to put on 9-year-olds. So this much pressure obviously is going to lead to some sort of scandal. In 2015, Fethullah Gulen and his followers were suspected and later convicted of cheating on these national exams. He is the leader of a group called Hizmet. It's a religious/social/political movement, and depending on who you ask, it's a violent political movement or just a benevolent one. Hizmet now runs Harmony Public Schools in the United States and Canada. Gulen is now in the US in a gated compound in Pennsylvania. The cheating happened between 2010, 2013, and around 250 people have been investigated or arrested for involvement. So yes, this is a very high pressure education system which can lead to perverse incentives. Back to the technology initiative. So this is a campaign project. The Turkish translation is there, which I will not attempt to read. And it's been rolling out across the country. As of 2015, thousands and thousands of schools had smartboards. So these are even the poorest schools. The Turkish government's invested, and as of 2015, 432 million classrooms have smartboards and internet connectivity. That's a pretty big deal. Turkey's not that big of a country. All right, so let's look at how big Turkey actually is. Turkish education is not divided into districts. It's overseen at a national level. So I couldn't find statistics for just Istanbul or just one district because that's not how they view themselves. So the comparisons I'm going to make are country to country instead of district to district. The United States has about 335 million people, and the Republic of Turkey has about 82 million people. So they're about a third of our size population-wise. The median age in the United States is 38.5, and the median age of the Republic of Turkey is 32.2. While that doesn't seem like much, it means Turkey's a pretty young country. 82% of Americans live in urban environments, and 76.1% of Turkish residents live in urban environments. The United States has 79% literacy, adult literacy. The Republic of Turkey says they have 96% adult literacy. Interestingly enough, the statistics come from the CIA World Factbook, but the CIA does not report on American literacy. For that, you have to go to the National Center for Educational Statistics. This I found interesting because with their growing education and their young population, I fully expected the United States to have more adult literacy. However, we do a little better on standardized test scores. This is based on the PISA in 2018. The United States spends about 5% of its gross domestic product on education, and the Republic of Turkey spends about 4.3%. The difference being that the United States has money that comes from states, districts, towns, counties, private areas, whereas the Turkish spending is all at the national level. So that's going to be more uniform across the country. The United States uses state, local, district standards. There's large variations, whereas the Republic of Turkey has national standards. Common Core state standards do exist and have been adopted by 41 states and the District of Columbia. However, there's still a national battle between federal and states' rights, and that did not end with the American Civil War. We continue to see this through examples such as the National Education Standards, still not adopted by Virginia, South Carolina, and Texas. So a few differences. There's national standards in Turkey. We have local and ever-changing standards. They have the tracking where you take a test when you're little to determine the rest of your life. We luckily don't have that. They have national funding for things like technology, whereas we're, again, left to our neighborhood areas, and their literacy rate is surprisingly higher. So here's my interview. I interviewed 2 teachers to get more of a first-hand, on-the-ground experience, one in an administrative position, one in a more teacher's role. They work at a private school in Istanbul. The students at this school come from fairly privileged and wealthy families. The school has an abundance of resources, and families pay thousands of dollars a year for students to attend this school. The Istanbul International Community School. It's a private K-12 school. Interestingly enough, 37% of the teachers are from the United States, and it was one of the first schools in the world and the first in Turkey to be authorized by the International Baccalaureate Program and provides all 3 IB programs. I've taught in IB programs. I find them fascinating and wonderful, so I found that to be a relatable thing. The 2 people I interviewed were Audra Santos and Julie Casamis. Audra is a middle school science and math teacher. She's taught in China, the United States, and Turkey. She has a master's degree. Julie is the head of the Department for Humanities, has taught in Washington, D.C., where I teach, and Turkey. She has a master's degree, and she's been teaching for 27 years. Both are from the United States originally. So these interviews did not show necessarily the everyday experience of an average Turkish student. They really showed an example of what could be done with an abundance of resources in this country. So given a ton of money and access, what kind of education could we expect? So Julie said our school requires that students have laptops, they must be Macs, there's a wood shop, 3D printer, and many other items. They have what they need. Staff also has laptops, Apple TVs, and projectors. Audra said she uses mostly online platforms, Edpuzzle, G Suite, Kahoot, Delta Math, Screencastify, and because of the pandemic, they're all using Zoom. However, they did note that they lack a position of somebody to really help them with all of this integration. They have somebody in the IT role, but somebody who can really show them how to use this to better instruction. Both educators have also taught in other countries. Audra noted that using technology in China was difficult because the internet was so restricted, whereas Turkey has wide accessibility, particularly in the urban areas. Others in Turkey probably cannot afford the level of education found at this school, and they do not follow national standards. They are an IB school following the International Baccalaureate Standards. So even giving the flush of cash and all of the resources, there's still some challenges into this teaching. One is the ban on political teaching. They cannot teach against the government's platform, even in a private school. And the other is the COVID pandemic, when they have had to transition to online teaching, which both educators noted was an incredible challenge. They do have some wishes. So Julie would love to see more mapping technology, and Audra would like to see more technology that helps students communicate online. If you think about this in the grand scheme of things, those are kind of second-tier wishes, whereas a lot of schools are still wishing for the bare bones. So it's interesting to see, when given everything, what do you still want? And it sounds like software. So what can we learn from all this? National standards and funding matter. One thing I have gotten out of all of this research and talking to these women is that throughout the country of Turkey, the student is worth just as much in a rural area as an urban area, and a rich area as a poor area in the public school system. That is so incredibly different than the United States. So leaving everything up to districts, states, or towns really creates inequity and inequality. And buying things for the whole country allows bulk purchasing, which ends up being cheaper in the long run. The transition for the majority of Turkey was easier maybe than some parts of the United States because they already had devices in hand through the government programs, and they already have connectivity throughout most of their cities. So I wondered, and do not have an answer, as to what would be different if the United States had national funding and national standards, to where a student in rural Missouri would be funded to the same level as a student in New York City or Washington, D.C. or Arkansas, and thinking about how even within a state, the districts provide unequal funding, and we're not even all trying to learn the same thing. There's not even national standards. So the US and Turkey, they face similar struggles. Yet, the US depends on local money and requirements while Turkey controls those things at a national level. Both systems have their own issues. Turkey tracks kids when they're 9, the United States has different issues, but I think that national control could lead to more equity for students. However, I do not like the idea of tracking. So, in conclusion, I think a big takeaway from this is that the standardization of expectations and funding can lead to rapid growth.